Welcome to the Vestibular Training webinar. When you look at this image, it conjures up a sense of peak performance, of striving to be the best, of elite champions, of really people who are excelling in their field. No one dreams of becoming second best. It is innate and hardwired in us to achieve and keep performing and improving. And I hope that by today's presentation, you will really start to understand how applying vestibular training into your fitness regime and into your practice can really help you achieve that level of peak performance. So here we have today's guest speakers. Sheila Thelen, who is the president of Vestibular Training Services, a master-rated figure skating coach, and also a patent holder for this vestibular training equipment, which is phenomenal and impressive. Sheila is also a self-described party in a box. And for those who know Sheila, you know this is true. We also have Caydrick Bloomquist joining us today. He is a fitness professional who specializes in gym design. And today he's going to be sharing with us his 6-week program and how he's been incorporating vestibular training and the incredible results that he's been achieving. My name is Jess Brain, and I am a brain fitness trainer, and I have been focusing my research and exercises in the sensory system, figuring out how we can amplify and augment our senses to increase cognitive abilities. So what is the vestibular system? Well, firstly, it's located in our inner ear, and it is also known as our inner compass. Not only is it to do with balance and movement, but it also helps us with our coordination and our proprioception. So knowing where our body is in our environment. It is also deeply connected to our eye movements. So knowing that when we turn our head, we can have stability in our vision. The vestibular system is also connected to over 30 major processes in the brain. So it is getting a lot of stimuli coming into the brain that's really making sure that we are getting information quickly about where our body is and our environment. So the vestibular system is traditionally known as just being our sense of balance. Obviously, Aristotle overlooked it when he considered the top 5 senses of the body. And the sensory system, the vestibular system, has been overlooked and undervalued until now. The vestibular system also engages our occipital lobe, our vision, which takes up 30% of our brain. So there's an incredible amount of information that is coming from our eyes. The vestibular system is also engaging our somatosensory system, which relates to our joints, our muscles, our skin, pressure, temperature, and vibration. So there is an incredible amount of information and stimuli that the brain is integrating and receiving at once, which really helps to activate the brain. A lot of the time when we are engaging the vestibular system, we are also moving the left side of the body over to the right and vice versa. And what this is doing, it is crossing the midline. So that means that both of our hemispheres of our brain have to pay attention and work a little bit harder. And it's strengthening the corpus callosum, which runs down the middle of our brain, connecting the two hemispheres and improving our information processing, our ability to focus and concentrate, and how much information we can process. So this also means with all this information coming into the brain, it is a novelty exercise. Our brain has to focus and pay attention in this new and novel way. And in that, it is actually tapping into and generating BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, also known as miracle grow for the brain, helping us to grow new neurons, strengthen our neural pathways, and keep our brain sharp and alert. And this can help us ward off Alzheimer's and dementia, keeping our brain stronger and full of vitality as we age. So I hope through this presentation you will begin to understand that our senses can actually be augmented and trained so that we can expand our field of perception, our field of judgment, and that we can actually start to harness our vestibular system, harness our senses, and tap into a greater sense of intelligence of ourselves and the world around us. So our vestibular system can train for peak performance, improving our balance, our coordination, our movement, and also increasing reaction times by making sure that we are aware of our body and the world around us and improving our agility, our muscles, and our movement. Vestibular training is also helping with recovery and rehabilitation. So this is something we might see in recovery zones, helping to prevent injury, also giving teams and athletes that competitive advantage against their competitors, improving resilience and strength, reducing the risk of falls, making sure that we have better posture, improved gait, also boosting our self-confidence, and of course, improving our sleep. And this taps into where we are training the brain in this novelty exercises, and that engages the brain, excites the brain, but also in a way that our brain feels can become well rested at night. And of course, that is when our brains are detoxifying and cleaning themselves. Now, vestibular training has also been shown to improve cognitive function, improving attention. Now, there's actually been a study called the Romberg test that has been going on since the 1960s that showed a strong correlation between balance and academic performance, that people whose balance was very good actually showed a 40% improvement in academic performance. Now, if we don't have a good sense of attention and focus, then it makes it incredibly hard to learn anything, and therefore incredibly hard to remember anything. Training the vestibular system can also improve our memory, our abstract thinking, and our decision making, helping us become a little bit more cognitively flexible. Now, if you go onto PubMed, you will find over 350,000 peer-reviewed academic articles that show that people are starting to take notice of vestibular training because it is shown to improve all of these physical and cognitive issues. Now, I just immediately start to think if we could improve some of these issues, imagine what improvements would be made in the greater sense in society on the individual level. This is the reason why I find this type of training so incredibly powerful and really can make such a big difference, a positive impact in the world. And with that, I would like to introduce you to Sheila Thelen, the president of Vestibular Training. Sheila, she lives and breathes vestibular training. She has recently been speaking at the Global Football Conference, the Physio Generation Innovation Summit, the Sensory Festival, and the Sports Philanthropy World Conference. And this is only just in the past couple of months. And she is on her way to be sharing this message with so many other people. So it's very hard to get her time, but so grateful that she's here today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Sheila, I'm going to make you the host so that you can jump on and how am I making you the host? That is the key. Here we go, making you the host.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. So exciting. So I want to thank everyone for coming on today. And of course, we're recording it. We'll add it to the website. Super exciting. Yet at the same time, what I'm really excited about hearing today is from Caydrick Bloomquist. And that's what I think I'm really here for today, is to see all of the ways that he's applying vestibular training in his projects in Colorado Springs. So now I'm going to make Caydrick make him the host here. We'll just keep bouncing around the host here. And Caydrick, I just am so excited, and I'm really here to hear you. So thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Sheila. That was a great intro. And also thank you, Jess, for doing all this, putting all this together. My team and I out here are extremely grateful for this opportunity and to work with some amazing people. Let me get to sharing my screen. Okay. Can everybody see that? Awesome. All right. So as Sheila has been kind of alluding to, and a little bit of what I've been developing here in Colorado Springs over here at Fit 365 downtown, working on what we call warp training. And it's a threefold process, and we'll get into all that. But WARP is an acronym that stands for Warrior Athlete Resilience Protocol Training, and it's specific to elite athletes, first responders, tactical, and operational. Among everything else, and anybody in general with a brain can benefit. But for the sake of this conversation, this is where we're leading. But before I really get into warp and all of its other intricacies, I'm going to play a 3-minute video. And this is just a little documentary that we have that's being shot right now. And this is what I would call a trailer, part 1. And it's just going to give everybody a little example of what we call vortex, which is the real meat and potatoes for what warp is made up of. So with that being said, I am going to let this play, and 3 minutes, and here we go. Oh, sorry. Can you not hear it? No. Let me try this.
Again, you need to reshare with audio. There might be an option to check mark sharing audio.
Sharing audio.
Stop sharing the screen, and afterwards you need to share again your screen with audio. The screen is shared now without audio.
That's correct. Yeah, when
Okay.
you go to share, there's an advanced setting that says
Oh, share sound.
Yes.
Gotcha. Oh, thank you, team. I apologize. I'm gonna try this one more time. Okay. Try this one more time. Share sound. Okay, let's try this. Can you still hear me though?
Yes. Absolutely. I think what's really fun for me, and this has been the biggest fascination, especially as, everybody has, a heart, everybody has a brain, we're all human, right? And, and I go back to what the health and fitness industry really is. It's a very young industry. It's something that we're still learning. We're still really understanding, these machines that we have, and they're miraculous machines. What I do here with Fit 365, I'm a trainer, as well as with what we're developing here with vestibular training. We're doing vortex training here with Fit 365. And it's an acronym for vestibular ocular reflex training exercises. So just a fancy way to really say that we're training your eyes in combination with the vestibular cord.
I'm in the help business. I want to help as many people as I can along the way. And I think our Vortex training is really, really unique and beneficial because the wide variety of people that can utilize this, from older populations that might be risk averse to falling, to younger kids that have attention deficit disorder, how I did as a young person, to elite athletes and their sport performance. So the fact that you can have all walks of earth kind of step in and utilize from this type of training is super, super important. It fascinates me a ton.
I was fascinated, I jumped in on it, I've tried it, I've tested it, it works. I feel it's a great benefit to all walks of life. I've seen it and been educated inside of it, and I just want to thank Kate and Alex for bringing me on board into this program with my skill sets. Part of the program is reflex, so we're training your eyes. So working with the pods, light reaction, reflexes, it's a must for every single athlete because, what is your balance look like? Do you educate yourself with, your reflexes? Yeah, I don't think we do, but it's available, right here, right now. It's a must. I'm just blessed to be standing on the shoulders of giants with these people.
All right. So that's our little introduction. Okay, so that's our little introduction. And what that consists of is what we just call that vortex. And that's a little documentary over the last 6 weeks of us doing a drop-in class and bringing a lot of different people in and utilizing this system that we call the vortex system. Now, talking about warp, we're going to take that a step further in where we implement the vortex training with what warp and how it all plays out. So warp is a comprehensive 6-week triphasic strength and conditioning program that incorporates the vestibular ocular reflex training exercises or vortex within a structured progressive overload framework designed to optimize both physical cognitive performance in the modern warrior athlete. So with that 3 parts, we have Vortex, we have our triphasic training, S&C, and then we have our energy and focus management. So let's focus on our Vortex protocol first. Now, when I first approached this, and when we looked at all this and how we were going to come up with our certain numbers, our certain intensities, and our certain volumes, and in combination with our certain exercises. And when within this protocol, we always start with our pre-test, right? Our pre-test is utilizing the BTS tracker system. And we do 2 tests. We do our fall prevention, then we do the cat sit. And that is just standard across the board. And to see the results, because balance is the metric that's going to tell us the health of the brain itself, the physical side. So when I break down my 6-week protocol, this is really something that can be utilized as many days a week. I typically go for 4 to 3 days a week, but you can go 5 days a week based on the beginner, intermediate, or advanced levels. The biggest thing when I first bring somebody in is always a beginner setting, and we're always spinning counterclockwise. There's a lot of reasons why we go counterclockwise. For the sake of everybody has a dominant right side or dominant left side. They have a dominant hand that they write with. We all have that dominant vestibular system too. And most people are really comfortable going that counterclockwise with the right side on the outside of that axis. If we notice that you're actually comfortable with the left side, it's not saying it's indicative of any brain trauma or any other issues like PTSD or anything like that, but it also could be in a sense that most people are not left dominant, which is something that Sheila and her expertise over the years and something that I've observed over the last 3 months. And so we really start counterclockwise, and really for this first 6 weeks of this protocol, it is majority counterclockwise. Now there are certain weeks within this protocol where we do go clockwise, but I first want to build them up because a lot of this training is really for us to understand that stimulus from the central nervous system, whether it's a sympathetic response, and that's where you start to get those clammy hands, you start to get nausea, you start getting all those different reactions. So that's where we started to get those 3 minutes, those 6 minutes, and those 9-minute intervals. So we've noticed as we progress through this at a slow RPM for our intensity levels, for the beginner level on a setting from 15 to 20, we're moving very slowly with just spinning, with the head just straight up upright. And then if we see that there's actually it's easy, they can do it for that minute. The second round, we'll add in another minute and we'll do some of these eye exercises in combination with it, as you can see in my photo. And then as we progress through the weeks, so week 2, you're going to be doing intermediate level training. Then we add in the progressive order of these eye exercises, from having a static head to moving your head to doing different exercises, moving your eyes and your head at the same time. So we start to slowly increase the intensity and progressively overload and start to build that person's spatial orientation capabilities as they start to experience that sympathetic response. And as you get better and better, you get to that 9-minute mark and you start to really understand how to control that sympathetic response. And that's really where the real training is extremely valuable. Besides all the benefits and everything that comes from training the vestibular system, it's really training the person on how to recognize these stimuluses and how to mitigate or how to handle them. And usually that's through that breath work, activating through, the conscious breathing. And as well as we know, some of these eye focusing exercises can help deregulate the system. So as we build up that threshold for the capability of spinning, and as we move into a week 4, my goal is to get them to spin for a continuation of 9 minutes, ultimately 9 minutes. But some people, as we work with them, They might not be able to do that, so it's still 3, 6, and 9 all together. So we try to scale it appropriately. And I can't emphasize this enough that the trainer involved is always going to be very intuitive with their clients, as any trainer should be already. But as you start to work with everybody, you will start to recognize those sympathetic responses in people, and communication is always vital in this type of training. Now, as I'm moving past week 4, I'm getting into my week 5 training, and that's where I'm starting to go clockwise. So for me, over the last 4 weeks, I'm trying to get them to a point where they're comfortable going that counterclockwise, which is really more dominant for most people. But what we have found is that it is extremely beneficial to add in some of that clockwise training as well, so you can get that full balance. Now, adding in the eye exercises and going clockwise for somebody that's so used to going counterclockwise where it's more comfortable, that actually increases that sympathetic response a lot quicker and sometimes a lot more severe. Now, once again, we keep the intensity dialed way down. And with the intensity dialed way down, we can really start to focus on being present. And when we talk about training neurally or neuro, we focus on 3 processes. That's the proprioception of the feet from the ground up. We focus on the perturbation. That's us coming off center of gravity and trying to reset. And then we focus on that vestibular part. And you can add in the eyes, and it just becomes even more advanced. So approaching it and kind of shocking the system actually allows you over those last 4 weeks to really understand and how to regulate when those sympathetic responses come up. So that's really the key as we move into week 5, is really kind of taking that 4 weeks of training of really getting that mind-body connection dialed in. And then we throw you into a little bit more chaos to see if we can downregulate the body within that system. So moving up to the 6th week, week 6, excuse me, we go back to a continuous counterclockwise spin. And so within that process, within those weeks, you can go 5 days a week, you can go 2 days a week. Ideally, 3 to 5 days in that ballpark is best. And in combination with the warp training, I'll explain to you and show you what else we utilize with our vestibular training device from spinning that actually adds a little bit more for the focus and the energy management as we first looked at. And as you can see also here on my graph, I have an alternative scaled progression for those populations that might need a little bit different approach. So we approach it from all different angles. I'm going to move to the next slide. So here is just one of the data collection that we have to show. And this is one of our clients who has had multiple TBIs, has been somebody that has definitely dealt with a lot of balance issues, and somebody that's under 40. And one of the main things that I really like to point out is just the improvement. And this is just one session, and it's his first session ever. And this is results from the pre-test and the post-test. So we do the fall prevention, and we also do that modified CAT-SIB. So you can really see some major improvements here just on the CAT-SIB, which is really, like I said, cool to see. And like I said, the balance is really the measurement of the health of the brain from a physical standpoint. So that's why we're looking at that data set. So let's move on to what I consider the triphasic training part of this whole warp program. Because like I said, I'm a strength and conditioning professional. I focus from the mind, body, and everything that's connected within that. And the reason I really love triphasic training, if you're not familiar with it, it's a great approach from a building and stabilizing, and especially from putting it first into programming to really build a base and a foundation. And this is something, especially from a neural standpoint, this is going to cause a lot higher neural load, and it's also going to increase joint resilience, the fascia, and everything that's involved. And it's something also, time under tension exercises are also very mindful. It takes a lot of intentionality, and it's something that really allows us to decrease the amount of volume in the gym, but increase the intensity at the same time through those time under tension types of lifts. And it's something that I really, in combination, as I utilize Vortex as a more or less a dynamic warm up, because a lot of that stuff, as you see, it's really going to be more than 9 minutes. So a 9 to 10 minute warm up in combination with some other sport specific or task specific warm up dynamics can also be utilized within this system. So it's very, very easy to be tailored and catered towards any of those specific tasks. And then one things I really like to point out, a part of our strength and conditioning in this format is our, PNF stretching, which if anybody's been in the gym, it is, once again, it's a neuro type of way of stretching. And it's very important that we approach this entire program from a holistic standpoint at every angle. And that's why I really, really enjoy having the Vortex program being done at the beginning, moving into a workout program that is also very much easy to be programmed within those same programs that are already being done. And triphasic can be a complementary type of strength and conditioning application with whatever else somebody is doing currently. So it's something that I've always want to add in there because it starts to train the mind-body connection even more. And doing it right after a spin session or working with that Vortex system, it really, really dials you in for the workout, which is beyond words about being the most focused I've ever been in any of these workouts. So we move into that strength and conditioning. And then I want to get to probably one of the more fascinating kind of projects or discoveries that we've been doing over the last 6 weeks. And I just want to kind of like talk about who I'm working with real quick to give kind of a background of this gentleman that is actually taking part in this warp training currently right now. And that's everything that we've just talked about so far through the 6-week protocol. And he's going 3 times a week with me from the Vortex with the spinning. And he's going 1 time a week with our energy and focus management. And he's doing his triphasic programming in combination with his sprint cycling training as an accessory to his current program. So with all that being said, my participant in this whole 6-week program is Brian Abers, part of Bry Hop Coaching, Brian's House of Pain. And that's what it's called. It's awesome. But his background is 17 years of coaching, primarily track cycling, former USA national team coach, 184 national titles to date, 5 Pan Am championships, 25 Master World Championships, 9 national records, 4 world records, 8 Para World Championship medals. Personally, for him, he has 21 national titles, 2 national records, 2015 Masters World Champion, and 23 World Championship medals. So with that in mind, he was somebody that was a great candidate and somebody that really saw the benefit from the get-go of what warp training, Vortex, and he saw the benefit immediately in his day-to-day and not just in his performance in the velodrome as a sprinter on the cycling. So he decided to jump in, and this was my test subject as we moved through these protocols. So we started to focus on our energy and focus management. One of the main things when I talk about the energy and focus management, I really try to take the word stress management out of the equation. We know that there's stress. We understand what there's stress, but stress is this indication of the energy moving through the body. And when you spin and you're put into this position, utilizing this system, you really feel the energy moving in your body. It is very palpable. And so that's what this whole energy and focus management section of the warp has really come to, was not necessarily the metric of measuring your balance or any of those things. It was going to be the metric of your internal focus. So what I really wanted to do and what I wanted to test in this hypothesis was what would happen if I brought him to that sympathetic response, and could he focus while he's in that sympathetic response on this 30 seconds of a time test. So we're really just trying to focus on if he can just internally count for 30 seconds. And it's really a simple exercise of just focus. And you can really call it mindfulness, you can call it any of those things, but it really takes the stigma away from anything else. But there is a clear focus that has to be had. And so when we would pre-test, we would do 5 rounds of 30-second tests. So he would try to tell me when he thought 30 seconds was up. So you can see his averages after week 1 for his pre-test was 38 seconds. His post-test after doing a 3-minute spin for week 1, counterclockwise at a rate of 20 RPMs, and that's just going counter. He thought, and I would test him on the spinner at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, right at about where his body would hit that sympathetic response. So I would give him his countdown and we would see how close he could get. And what we started to notice, and in a lot of the conversations, there's this term called vestibular hallucination, and it's a time warp. It warps the time and space in a way that 1 minute feels like 6 minutes, vice versa. You know, time flies when you're having fun, or when you're in school, it seems like 1 hour is 7 because you're not engaged, you're not present. So this really, the inception of this training came from us really not understanding how long we were actually standing on this spinner. I mean, it's kind of a funny thing because most people, you know, I will call out the time when we're just spinning normally, as I talked about. We have those intervals of 1 minute to 2 to 3 minutes, and people would be like, whoa, I thought it was much longer. I thought I've only been on here for so much shorter of a time. So that's where we really wanted to focus on how do we bring ourselves back to this presence and work on focusing in the chaos. And once again, it's not a huge stimulus. We're moving very, very slowly, but it doesn't take a lot to make that stimulus come up. So we started testing that. And in the first week, he was averaging, on his first week, that score when he was spinning was 40 seconds. So time was a lot different for him. But as we moved on, we increased that spin after the pre-test to 6 minutes, just like we would when we progressed them through the Vortex protocol. And this is done 1 time a week. So it gives them that separation, and it gives you that 1 time a week to really know that you're coming in to do energy and focus training. So it really gives you that compartmentalization to know this is what we're doing. And it's only really about 15-ish minutes of actual dedicated focus, but it feels like a lot longer. But that's the intensity, and that's that cognitive resilience that we're really building when we do this part of our time, of our energy and focus management training. So as you can see, the next week, he's getting better because he's also a super athlete and he's very determined, and he's getting better at understanding his body's response when he's spinning. And one of the things in my after action reports, when I'm looking at this and I'm talking to him, I'm asking, are you hearing yourself audibly resetting, taking those conscious breaths? And the answer was he had no idea he was taking these audible breaths or these conscious breaths. He was just doing it. And that's where we really started to see that mind-body connection of just kicking in when his body started to recognize it. And that's what we started to see. It could build his threshold because we've trained the system to be able to respond and to mitigate it before it got too disorientated. So we started to see, as we increased the spin, that his ability got a lot better because he can also spin longer, and he's also being capable of re-regulating when he does get disoriented. And so he's really dialed in to that process of feeling that, and he's talking about it, and it's really fascinating to see that that's what he's been training, not knowing that that's what we're really focused on training. So when we start to take these pre and post test scores, I have my variance ratings down here at the bottom. And what I'm really looking for is the post test score minus the pre test. And I'm looking in my equations for a good score of a plus or minus score for down here, just meaning that's how tight they are for that 30-second mark and how close he was from the pre to the post test. And week 1, he was 6 seconds difference in between that. So very bad score. And it's very difficult to do if you've never really tried to do, time 30 seconds in your head. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And doing it 5 times in a row, basically 2.5 minutes, it's very difficult. And I really am grateful for his participation because he's a trooper. He's sweating. It's not easy. And we're really not doing, like I said, too much tasking exercises by any standard. We're just spinning for those 3, 6, and 9 minutes. So this is a very minimal physical exercise, but it's an incredibly difficult cognitive exercise. So that's why when I talk about the score, as he progressed week 2, he got a little better. It's under that 1. Even better here, he's still under that 1. And we're staying under that ±1 each week and week out. Now, after the first 3 weeks, and he starts to get better, he starts to get even more comfortable, I start to switch it up and I start to go clockwise. And as I talked about before, going clockwise really is even more disorientating, especially if you've been spinning counterclockwise and then the first time you get up there. So what it does is it allows me to really, once again, stimulate him, get him into a sympathetic state, and try to see if he can bring himself down and out of that state, and then be able to focus on the task of that internal clock during that quote unquote warp or that chaos. So you call it the chaos training of that. And as you can see here on this one, go back. And you can see here for this 4th week where we started spinning clockwise, time sped up. And in that after action report, he even told me time felt like it was going quicker. He felt like he was faster. So it was really an exercise for him to be able to deregulate himself back into that balanced state. And when we talk about that balanced state, that calm alertness on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being your most alert, 1 being the most calm, we want to be at about a 7. And as somebody that's been in sports and sports psychology and performance psychology, it's always the 7. But the question that's always hard to ask is like, well, what is your 7? How do you know what a 7 is? It's the same way when I go in the strength and conditioning room, I figure out a 1 rep max, and then I base my program off of those percentages, 60% of that 1 rep max or 70%. So when we approach this type of training, the energy and focus management training, it was once again approaches from developing the mental muscle from the focus side, because we have to also focus on the psychology of it as well, the ability to turn on the prefrontal cortex to make those decisions in that chaos. And in the chaos, it doesn't take a lot from the spinning aspect. That's why it's very invasive, but it's nice because you can be right there in the room and you can be very involved and you can really hear yourself. So it is a very meditative practice. Now, we're not teaching a mindfulness practice. We're encouraging it through this training. And this training really makes you focus in on these times. And the reason why we chose the 30-second mark is because the world really runs, in our hours and our 60 minutes and our 60 seconds. And, we tried 1 minute, we tried different variations. 30 seconds seems to be, with 5 different reps or 5 different rounds, really seems to be the best outcome that we really found. And also for the time constraint, it was really the optimal number. And it was the most effective dose when it came to the training aspect too. So we really focused on developing that internal clock, have you. And that really gave us the ability to start working on just the ability to focus in the moment when everything around you is chaotic. And back to the vestibular hallucination, where we really have to figure out and dial in our systems. And sometimes when you're in the chaos, your body, you don't always have that capability. And so we train the system to be able to turn that parasympathetic system on unknowingly, unconsciously in those environments. And that's why where I add this part of the training, it really goes in as like one time a week, and it really complements our vortex plus our triphasic training programming. It is all hitting the different neural functions from all parts of the systems. So we really focus on pushing the envelope on all four corners. So that's what this energy and focus management of the warp training is and what it looks like. So let me go to my next slide. So here's just some examples of some other dual tasking activities that we're doing with my partner here, Richard Weston and Alex Thomas. Disregard, this was one of the videos. We didn't hook up our harness quite properly with Alex here in the right corner. But one of the things I really also enjoy about working with this equipment is also utilizing dual tasking. And, you know, you can see here we're throwing different colored bags at Richard, and we're also calling out different colors for him to catch at the same time. And we're also giving him the command, well, one hand is red and the other hand is blue. And then he has to be able to decide that as he's disoriented, as he's spinning. And so we have found that extremely valuable, and is something that really, like I said, when we train in those reflexes and that entire system all at once, this is one of the best little examples of an exercise that I really enjoy doing. And putting that within another system within like our vortex and adding in the hand-eye coordination through the training with blaze pods, through, you know, Bosu balls, stable to unstable surfaces, really it just amplifies that sort of training and takes it to the next level. And I wanted lastly to point out my gentleman here doing some of our exercises on our equipment. And he's also the guy that made that 3-minute video, Anthony Miles, and he's also the guy doing our documentary. And he's somebody that loves spinning. He has had some brain trauma as a young kid, and his testimonial and the reason why he loves shooting these documentaries is because he gets to spin all the time. So we're really grateful, and I am extremely grateful for everybody on my team and everybody that's involved, and especially, you know, for Jess putting this on, and Sheila allowing me to discover and put together some of these programs. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. All right. Do I need to give that back to you, Jess? Okay.
That's all right. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much, Caydrick, for sharing. That was absolutely phenomenal. I love how you've gone into so much detail and just applying sort of really simple exercises and getting such incredible results. Please sign me up for the Vortex program. I'm in 100%. That looks amazing. All right, so you've seen a real world example of using and applying this vestibular training in a gym, but of course it could also be used in rehabilitation centers, sports teams for improved sports performance, at schools for academic performance improvement, or perhaps even in a business setting. You know, as a lot of organizations now have a fitness section department where they can people can do some training while they're on site, while they're at work. And having this type of equipment in your center can help accelerate the growth of your business, the improvement of your clients, your employees, your athletes. And I think there's also an element that is often overlooked in terms of marketing, because training the vestibular with these vestibular system devices can really tap into word of mouth. The equipment is so remarkable and the experience so phenomenal, the changes and the benefits are felt immediately, that people go home and they immediately tell their friends and their family. And this says that when the Nielsen report says that 92% of people will trust a product or a brand that comes from their friends and family. People are 5 times more likely to buy a product when it's a recommendation from a friend as opposed to an ad. So if you have this equipment in your office or training center, you could perhaps chalk it up to being part of the marketing budget, because word of mouth is something that I think is often overlooked, but an incredibly powerful and compelling way to attract new business. So with vestibular training, there are actually 2 options. There's the rail spinner, where you'll see here in the top picture, and that is where you can hold on. This is perhaps for rehabilitation centers where people have had a brain injury or they have some movement issue, or perhaps they're suffering from vertigo and they don't want to spin too quickly. And then there is the fly spinner. This is for elite athletes, sports professionals, people who can really handle that little bit more challenge. Now, on top of this, you also have all the neuroscience research, over 350,000 PubMed research articles showcasing the different benefits and results. In having one of these devices, you will also do training with Sheila. Now, of course, this can be done in person in Minnesota at the Vestibular Training headquarters, or Sheila will do the training virtually. People get to see immediate results and benefits, which is phenomenal. They walk out feeling like a different person. And like I said, you get that business growth, that word of mouth, and a bunch of loyal customers who are eager to sign up and are lining up around the block. So finally, in summary, our vestibular system, like all of our senses, can be trained. It can be improved, and the benefits and the results are astronomical. There are diverse applications and ways that this training can be used. And of course, you can continue, like Caydrick said, to add on new elements through vision, keeping your eyes open, keeping them closed, throwing the sticks or different colors, or making people guess how long 30 seconds is. Simple exercises, but a lot of diverse uses for this vestibular training. And it is not just strengthening the body, but also strengthening the mind, building confidence, building resilience. And one thing that I think is often overlooked, but is giving people hope. And hope is something that could give someone back their zest for life, their energy, give them back, allow them to feel like they are themselves again. Or perhaps it is the hope of winning the championships. And either or, vestibular training is taking over the world with Sheila Thelen at the lead. And I hope you jump on board. If you'd like to learn more about vestibular training and how you could have these devices in your gym, office, or perhaps your home gym, please send me a message, and we'd be happy to send over some more information about which devices would work well for you, shipping, some peer-reviewed academic articles, and happy to jump on a call and chat to you more about that. But in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, now's your opportunity. Feel free to come off mute and jump in and ask any questions. Do we have any questions?
Especially for the cognition part, memory improvement, how it is connected to means how proprioception and visual area, which is directly connected to vestibular system. can improve our cognition and memory.
Does anyone want to, Caydrick, do you want to hop on that? Or Jess, do you want to hop on that? Like we can, I think what we have also seen too, in even our aging community, they're starting to talk again. Caydrick, you can talk a little bit about that too, but just even bringing
Yeah.
back the memory of language, is something that we're seeing now too.
Yeah. One of the things, with working with a lot of different clientele, I have a lot of different TBI clients. I have some dementia clients. And one of the more fascinating things is the personality change. And one of the things about, memory and cognitive resilience, or the ability to retain information, is definitely going to be dictated by the mood that you're in when you're receiving said information, as well as recall. And one of the really profound things besides sleep, I don't think I can emphasize what sleep does or what the sleep difference is after activating the vestibular system. Now, when you get good sleep, it's obviously going to mean that you get a lot of other good qualities. And what does good sleep really mean, and how do you quantitate good sleep? It's really pretty simple. It's not about the duration, it's really about the REM and the deep sleep, right? That's where that part of that brain is recovering. That's where memories are being formed. And that's where we're actually integrating new information throughout our day. So if you really want to improve your cognitive functions, your memory, speech, and all those patterns of the brain, then it really comes down to the sleep factor. And that's something that, I can show you through just the different biometrics that we wear and the different clientele that I work. One of my clients, he actually had a sleep study done, and it was incredible to see. He was going from basically 15 minutes of REM to an hour and a half of REM. And this was just over a very short period of time, and very invasive amount of spinning. And, just in my own experience and everybody I work with, everybody really experienced this as if they're on drugs after spinning. It's really phenomenal. The neurochemical response that's happening in the body. And we can, like I said, somebody a lot smarter than me can break down the anatomy of the brain and how all those different functions really work. But with 30 different autonomic functions that we're affecting, it's really going to come back down to that ability for that brain to reprocess when it's sleeping. I cannot speak on that enough. It is that vital. And that's really where you get that cognitive performance, you get that memory, and you get that ability to recall as well. And it's really actually pretty profound.
Does that mean we are stimulating hippocampus? Because it is directly connected with cerebrum, where there is cognitive task is performed and memory functions as well.
I would even say the hypothalamus too can play a huge role in that as well. And that's something that, once again, we're stimulating the brain from the internal side out. A lot of times when we're stimulating our central nervous system, it's from the peripheral system, right? Through the ground up philosophy. So what's really fascinating is, like we discussed, the vestibular system is connected to 30 different autonomic nervous system functions, as well as the 12 cranial nerves that run through the brainstem. The vestibular ocular system gets 2 of them. So if that tells you anything about the importance and the functions that the vestibular system plays, it really, like I said, when it moves into that mood and it moves into the memory, it's a combination of the intricate system that the brain all is. There's everything that goes in, and that neurochemical transmitters and everything that plays a part in that. And it's really, once again, spinning and then seeing yourself when we balance you, and then your post test, like I said, that's showing how dialed in that brain and everything, the whole system is. And you see people, just the personalities change. I will say this, that's one of the more incredible things, especially with people with neurodivergent or neurodegenerative disorders. There is a switch that's turned on. Once again, a little bit beyond any of my scope, but at the same time, the anecdotal experience of somebody's talking more, their gait has improved. That's another test that I really perform as well, is a gait test, and it's a simple gait test. Just walk down and back about 20 feet. And you can really see, especially in those populations, where this really, like I said, very minimal spinning, very minimal. Some people only spin 3 to 4 times around in full circle, but it's igniting, it's turning something on, and it's allowing that systems and all those systems to really focus. And like I said, that midbrain application, I think is a huge part of that.
Eventually, it improves neuroplasticity, leading to those improvements, I think. I guess so.
Yeah. Have you spun yet?
Not yet.
We need to spin you.
I'm focused on most of the research part.
Okay. No, that's fair. But that's something, I mean, like what I've even noticed with, our working professionals. I have a lot of guys, like I said, some of those processes that we discussed, like, just spinning for, like I said, 9 minutes. It's almost like having a, cup of coffee. It's also, like I said, it's almost as if some people compare it to ADHD medication. It really increases this, whatever that stimulus is. And it really is, once again, very profound, the feeling that you get. And, what Jess was alluding to, with doing better in school has to do with a balanced mind. And, a balanced life starts with a balanced mind.
Well
I'll
said.
leave it at that.
I like that one, Caydrick. That's a great one. I'm going to note that one down. Does anyone else have any other questions? If no one does, Sheila, I would love you to share a little bit more about the pre and post test that you did with NeuroCatch, because I think that is incredibly fascinating, and people really need to hear that. Do you mind sharing a little bit more on that one?
Absolutely. So we were able to team up with Tanya Yardley and Derek Norsworthy over at NeuroCatch. They're based in California and Vancouver, and they were here in Minneapolis, and they worked with me. It was a very short window of time. They're coming back because it was so successful. But what we basically did is we worked with 5 different people. And we did their little 6.5 minute brain scan. So it's this, you wear this little neuro cap, and it hooks up to the computer, and it's just got just a couple little gel points, but it doesn't have all the wires hanging out of it. So for a lot of populations, it's more calming. It's not as scary looking for a lot of populations. So you wear the little swim cap, they hook it up, they tie it all together, and they do their brain scan. It's 6.5 minutes, and then you spin with me gently, and then from there we retest again. And after a 1 minute rest, and back onto the brain scan again. And the data coming out of it was shocking. And we had really interesting population. The first athlete was a Team USA athlete who, in post test, doubled her brain speed and used less energy to do it. I'm thrilled. Okay, so we get to the second person. And it's my famous Thor that you see in a lot of my videos, who's had multiple concussions, a brain bleed, all documented. And when I met him 6 months ago, like it was rough. He wasn't working, light and sound. He couldn't handle it. He wasn't driving. He gained 40 pounds. It was all of these pieces that it was his struggle. And so he worked with me once a week. And we missed a couple of weeks, I'll be honest. We missed a couple of weeks in there and over a 6-month period. And when he had his initial brain scan with NeuroCatch, Tanya looks at me and she goes, "Are you sure he's had a concussion? Because nothing's showing up in the pre-test." And so I'm going to take a second and tear up about, like, he didn't show any concussions in his pre-test where he's had significant concussions. So the rehabilitation of that has been very, very exciting, especially in that concussion world is really a scary place, not only for the person, but for their family. So then from there, we moved over and did a project with John Rock. Hi, John. John's on the call. And we worked with 3 individuals. The first lady had a history of strokes and concussions, and she only improved by 100%. That's all she improved, because the lady that had early onset Alzheimer's, she improved by 400%. So it was a shocking piece of data there. And the third gentleman with special needs, in the pre-test, his left hemisphere was not active, but in the post-test, his left hemisphere came up to speed with his right hemisphere. So these are all exciting pieces to the point that NeuroCatch is coming back to Minneapolis to work with some leadership and some major corporations and some pro athletes here in the Twin Cities coming that we work with. That it's really exciting to see more and more projects with them. To the point, the leadership at NeuroCatch was so impressed with the data changes that we signed a partnership that night, like, so I always talk about, like, when you do it yourself, when you get on the gear, and everyone that does this, and you talk about people selling your product for you. I think almost every person on this call that's worked with me wanted to be sales agents. They've all sent me more business. All of you have been so kind and so supportive of these projects, because we realize how many people it can reach. We can feel it instantly. You can feel it. I just worked with a lady with Parkinson's yesterday, and she talked about already, I just got a message from her today. She improved her balance by over 15 centimeters less movement. So 15 centimeters less movement over an 80-second test. And when she started to, she had 3 sections of red and only 1 green in her pre-test. And in the post-test, she had 3 sections of green, which is, it is a big improvement. She talked about, already in a text to me today, she felt like she was living in a car wash. Like she was sitting, her brain was sitting in a car wash at all times, and she couldn't get out of the car wash. And today she felt like she was in a moving car away from the car wash. And I just thought that was an amazing analogy of Parkinson's disease, and so yeah, so like all of these great little pieces that we have coming forward, to the point we talk about, we work with everyone with a brain. But to see Caydrick and John Rock and all of these other clients and vendors and sponsors and teammates using the product and really reproducing my results over and over and over again quite easily. And I think that's where I'm obsessed with the project, that really, we talk about 3 turns, 5 turns, 8 turns, 1 minute, people that can only do 1 turn, the kids that can go crazy on the gear, absolutely crazy on the gear. It's being easily duplicated, and it's really easy equipment to run and to apply and to see these outcomes. So all of these partnerships that have come together, I'm truly grateful for, because I just think of how many people we can all help together in teaming up on these projects.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that everybody could benefit. And Dhruv, I liked how you responded and you said you haven't been spinning yet. If anyone else wants to spin, reach out to us. Come visit Sheila in Minnesota, or Caydrick in Colorado Springs, or John Rock also in Minnesota. Reach out to us if you have any further questions, interest in having some of this equipment in your gym, your home office, or workplace. Final questions, anybody? Nope. All
I just
right.
left my LinkedIn profile in the chat to connect with everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you, Sheila, so much. Thank you, Caydrick, for sharing. It was phenomenal. Really appreciate everyone being here. Hope you all have a fantastic day. And yeah, hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Thank you.